I thought I'd do a video on what I call my wargaming back burner. My game collection is not what anyone would call large. I have one gamer buddy who's more of a collector than a player, and he acquires more games in a quarter than I own total. So my paltry lot of maybe 80 titles will never rival that of, say, Stuka Joe, or the Player's Eight Guys, or Kilroy, or Ardwolf. I don't buy new games that often. Rather, I keep the ones that I've owned for decades, or reacquire games I've lost during a 30-year hiatus from wargaming. I also go for an emphasis on quality rather than quantity, given the choice. Sure, I have a few stinkers in my mix, but they're the exception rather than the rule. But even though my game collection is modest, it doesn't mean that they're anything like well used. Every time I cast a glance at my shelves, I see a familiar cast of characters, all very familiar, but some I haven't really looked at in many a year. Some I'm sure I'll never play again before I depart this mortal coil. And then there are others that I'm really itching to play, but can't name a time or a specific opponent. These are the games on the back burner. These are the games I've been meaning to play for a long time, some of them for years, but just haven't managed to scrounge up a game of. The reason this back burner exists is because I have one go to system, the Great Battles of the American Civil War series from GMT Games, which monopolizes my wargame time and effort to a very large degree. Now, I'm not exactly complaining because I absolutely love this system and the enjoyment I get from it and the community that supports it. But because I'm involved not only in playing and evangelizing for GBACW, but also involved in the development and play testing of titles that are in the works, creating and maintaining vassal modules for the series, and now designing my own battle games for future publication, you can imagine I have precious little time for anything else. Still, to keep things fresh, I make a concerted effort each year to have a look at my back burner and try to remove a title or two from it each year. God knows there'll be other games to replace them back there, as the back burner is never in any danger of being cleared up entirely. So, I'll start by listing games that are most prominent or most stuck on my back burner, and then I'll detail which of these I managed to get cooking in 2021.
I get a lot of comments from people whenever I put something out there on social media about a game or a series or even a subject that has nothing to do with GBACW or the Civil War. People tend to think I'm a one trick pony in that regard, but it's absolutely not true. There are several other eras and subjects that hold my attention besides just the war between the states. These are the games most likely to end up taking up space on the back burner. So, in no particular order, here's what's simmering on my crowded wargaming back burner. Empire of the Sun. This Mark Herman classic, along with an ever growing number of expansions such as Plan Orange, South Pacific, and the soon to be released Burma, is a grail game for many. I have all of the games, except for Burma, obviously, and I got some plastic pockets for all the cards I'll have to protect once I get to it in earnest. I made one concerted effort to learn the rules a few years ago, which aren't that complex, but then I set up a game on the Vassal module and quickly ran into a question about reinforcements and replacement units in the first turn after the special Pearl Harbor mini turn that starts things off in infamy. Wasn't sure that the US war machine could switch into high gear that fast. Anyway, I got stymied and then distracted and put Empire of the Sun away. But like the bounty hunter in the outlaw Josie Wales, I have to go back. Have to. Downtown series. Downtown, the Vietnam era operational air combat game, was a grail game of mine for a while. Then I lucked out big time and got an in shrink copy of it for a great price from a local fellow who was beginning to transition out of the hobby. Previously, I'd gotten a copy of Elusive Victory, the Arab Israeli War volume of the series, and had made some inroads with the rules as well as watching a few playthroughs and tutorials on YouTube, courtesy of the Blue Tweezers. And subsequently, I did a P500 and got Red Storm, the modern 1980s volume. Looking at that, I'm thinking it might be a bridge too far in terms of complexity and fiddliness, so I'm not sure whether I'll delve into that. But I may. Still, the original game in this series is still in shrink as yet. One day, one day. Highway to the Reich. I own an original SPI flat pack copy of this game from way back in 1978 when it first came out. I have the coverless first edition of the rules, the cover of which you had to tear off and mail to SPI as proof of purchase to get a copy of the second edition rules. Once in high school, a group of us came this close to setting up and playing this long, tall monster. I held on to it for 30 years, only having played a few of the one-map scenarios solo over the years. Always wanted to truly put this one to the test. More on this later. Everybody has to have at least one bulge game in their collection, and this seemed to be the right one for me. I wasn't that interested in the massive Wacht am Rhein back in the day, even though I picked up a clearance copy of Time for Trumpets this past summer. But I heard a lot of good things about Battles for the Ardennes, particularly because it deals with both the 1944 and the 1940 Ardennes campaigns. I'm thinking this will give me the Napoleon's Last Battle's operational overview of the two campaigns, rather than the company level hugeness of one of the tactical treatments of just the 44 battle. The Central Front series. This series is, in my opinion, one of the most innovative systems ever devised for modern operational level armor in the Cold War gone hot era. It also has one of the most fractured and fragmented histories of any series, bar none. The first three games in the set, Fifth Corps, Hofgap, and British Army of the Rhine, or BAOR, came out before the collapse of SPI. Under TSR's wretched stewardship, the last two games came out in the form of Donau Front and North German Plain, but the system was changed radically and dumbed down, removing the very friction point mechanic that made the system. Happily, though, the fan base didn't give up and not only updated the order of battles with declassified material and improved intelligence over the years, they updated the rules and created a whole new consolidated counter mix for all five games, keeping the dream alive of playing an entire Red Thrust campaign from Hanover to München. The final bit of good news was the appearance of a vassal module that linked all five games, presented the counters in the original SPI style, and added automated features to make the games more approachable and playable than ever before. Central Front is a series where playing on the vassal module is demonstrably superior than trying to set up and play the physical game. Men of Iron Tri-Pack. Almost as an afterthought, I acquired a copy of the very reasonably priced tri-pack reprint of the late Richard Berg's medieval series comprised of Men of Iron, Infidel, and Blood and Roses, and then scooped up the last in the series, Arquebus, too. I guess I am somewhat of a completist, huh? Thanks to Rough Swordsman Wargamer, I watched some playthroughs on YouTube that have already given me a comfort level with the system mechanics. Who knows, I might hit up old Ruff to have a right go at one of these battles. I'm dying to explore some Crusades action with cavalry and infidel. Jaws of Victory. This Charlie Award winner might be in the running for the most beautifully produced wargame package ever, not just for 2020 or 2021. The physical design for this is just awe-inspiring. It actually looks better than some of Redmond Simonson's best work, and that, my friends, is saying something. It's adapted from the Victory in the West system with variable strength units and sports an innovative command and supply system. It's just begging to be played. I already know two or three people for sure who already own this, and there's a vassal module ready to go, so this one looks to be a favorite to get off of the back burner in the next year. The Simonish 40 series. I've seen enough YouTube vids on Holland 44 and Stalingrad 42 to feel like I've almost played both of these well-regarded games. Yet both sit in shrink on my shelves waiting for an opportunity. Even worse from a play standpoint, Salerno 43 is awaiting a landing date on a West Coast port for delivery to its P500 backers, so that'll soon make three of this series that I mean to play at some point. Last Stand. This Masahiro Yamazaki take on what is essentially a What Happens Next extension to the classic Panzergruppe Guderian caught my fancy this year through a couple of playthroughs and analysis pieces on YouTube. It's stylish and slick and appears to have a very interesting design to go with its great graphics. This is the only MMP title I own, and because it's a pickup and a reprint from another publisher, it's not hamstrung by MMP's usual hard components. It does, however, lack a vassal module, and I've gotten map and counter scans ready to go to remedy the situation. But alas, where do I get the time? Sicily, the race for Messina. This is the only one of the original S&T Victory in the West trio that I haven't played yet. Over one weekend several years back, I played both Operation Grenade and Patton's Third Army, and really enjoyed the system. I hear Sicily is the best of the lot, so perhaps one day I'll pry my binder open and give this one a whirl. Wellington's Victory, or some tactical Napoleonic system that isn't Lavatai. This is another old SPI chestnut I've had since the 1970s, along with Ney vs. Wellington, its less ambitious sister game published in S&T magazine. The knock on this one was always the way skirmishers were, some would say, abused in ahistorical ways. Also, the Labatai series has won the test of time, and that system remains vibrant and active, lo, some 40 years later. But despite several attempts, I just can't get into Labatai with any enthusiasm. My chief gripe is the fact that the system has at least three variations of the core rules, and this is done purely for player preference and convenience reasons, which to an old grognard like me is exactly the wrong reason to have more than one set of rules for any one system. Simply put, two of the rule systems have to be wrong and not properly portray the design intention. Anyway, I've had a few near misses with Wellington's Victory, including creating a vassal module for Ney vs. Wellington and achieving a long-time goal of recoloring its terrible slate gray map. I came as close to agreeing to play a base 10 variant for Wellington's Victory that altered the fire tables and the morale ratings, but we discovered some other issues just as we were getting started. I suppose I'll have to either just figure out a house rules workaround for skirmishers, or just hold my nose and play this sometime. I really would like to try a detailed Waterloo battle at least once. Glory 2, Across the Rappahannock. Glory is a strange bird of a series. It's what I call a demi-brigade treatment of Civil War battles, about a half-step larger scale than the regimental level tactical fare of the GBACW series, but not up to the operational scale of the popular Great Campaigns of the American Civil War series. Units in Glory tend to be half brigades, comprised of maybe 2 or 3 regiments, and artillery batteries are at nearly the same scale and composition as the tactical GBACW. Hex scale is about twice the size, and the combat, cohesion, and morale rules are likewise simplified and abstracted. Actually, this is the thing that has really kept me from playing these. The rules are similar enough to GBACW that I don't want to get confused and learn bad habits that would keep me from playing either series correctly. Still, from everything I've heard, the Chancellorsville treatment you get from breaking out all 3 maps of Across the Rappahannock, which also includes the earlier Battle of Fredericksburg, is really great and offers finally a satisfying solution to how to game Chancellorsville and allow that Lee division of forces and that Stonewall Jackson flank march with players who have 20/20 hindsight. So that's pretty much what's been in the queue on my back burner for the last 5 to 10 years. But time marches on and new games appear on the scene. I don't buy that much, but occasionally I'll acquire something that interests me, but then it still ends up on the shelf. Here are some new additions from the past year. Kharkov Battles. This popped up in several unboxings and reviews in November, and once I learned about its similarity to the Victory in the West system and to some degree the Simonich 40-something series, I took a flyer on it. Looks good and appears to be solid in the rules scenario category. And the Vassal module for this just appeared today. All I need is some time. Stonewall Jackson's Way. This one is still in the mail for my Christmas acquisition spree, although there are some aspects of this very popular system that really stick in my craw, like how dice-bound it is, using constant 1 die 6 rolls to determine who activates, and then how much movement activated units will get, whether units fatigue or not, whether a turn continues on or ends early, never mind relatively rare combat results. But still, the gorgeous maps of these games are really attractive, and I can definitely see the appeal of the operational level of the Civil War. The maneuver campaigns that lead to the big battles have a period feel of their own, and this series seems to have the ticket to exploring that aspect of the Civil War. I figured I should own at least one of them, but they can be expensive propositions on the third-party marketplace. One fellow sold a bunch of them at very low prices over the holidays, so I jumped on this one to at least have one representative of the great campaigns of the Civil War in my collection. No telling when I might actually get it played, or whether I'll rely on the prolific Patrick Mullen of Patrick's Tactics and Tutorials to give me glimpses of this game system in action. So, what did I manage to clear off my back burner in the last year? Let's have a look. Central Front. Early on in the year, a vassal module appeared by Alan Yan that not only encompassed all 5 of the games, and not only used some of the great automated features that I had helped to work into some of the earlier standalone modules for Fifth Corps, Hofgap, and Bayor, this one also presented all 5 games forces using the original SPI counter design. Carrie Anderson had released a consolidated counter set, but he took a few liberties with the design that left me wanting a true original treatment, which of course you absolutely cannot get with the original Donau Front and North German Plain, which have totally different and incompatible counters for the altered game system they use. But once the Red Thrust Vassal module appeared, I was over the moon and set out to gaming this in earnest. I played both solo and opposed and chronicled my exploratory efforts with Donau Front on this very YouTube channel. My opposed effort was fun, but disappointing in that I was playing the Soviets in North German Plain and rolled ground fog for the pivotal first game turn. That grounded 2/3 of my air assets, which were necessary for the chemical attacks that would get the offensive building momentum. I never recovered from that, and in my frustration with the early hamstringing, didn't keep up the required thoroughness with managing my forces. My opponent, playing the NATO forces admirably, dutifully slammed down a nigh impenetrable wall not far from the jumping off point, and even the initial Warsaw Pact tactical nuke barrage couldn't loosen up an exploitable gap. I conceded after about 4 turns. Flat Top. I played this a bunch this year and last. I have a standing Saturday playdate with a gaming buddy from Michigan, and this is the title we both love the most. I think he enjoys it more than me because he's almost guaranteed to win. I like to play the Japanese as they have by far the greatest challenge, and the historical advantages the U.S. have in terms of search assets and capabilities, in effectiveness of bombers, and in all but the largest battleships, it's hard to surmount. Okay, I also appear to flat out suck at this game so far. Still, we played a tense game of a hypothetical Wake Island scenario, which takes the situation from the fait accompli Japanese victory to one the U.S. should have a hard time losing. We played the Eastern Solomons Guadalcanal scenario and also played Midway again. I got shellacked in all 3, but like I said, I had great fun doing it. I'll be back for more punishment next year. Highway to the Reich. This was my disappointment of the year by far. I fell in with a local group of guys here in Oregon, corralled 6 of us, and we were ready to go by mid-October. Plan was to play the entire 106-turn full game, probably taking years to complete. But after some fits and starts and getting the rules under our belts, and that entailed at least 2 3-hour meetings on Discord hashing things out, we got started and several huge holes in the rule system became painfully evident. The 3 worst were that 1. The Allies had little risk reward that stopped them from dropping into very, very tight areas near their objectives. 2. The supply rules that did not allow the very fractured piecemeal German forces from being able to trace supply to roads leading off the map, which, coupled with a 50-50 chance of ammo depletion every time a out-of-supply unit fires, quickly becomes critical when you can't trace to a headquarters. And 3, the absolute killer was the disruption rules, which so decimate an afflicted unit that it has practically no chance to survive and recover. In fact, on the initial airdrops, the British 1st Airborne dropped sticks of gliders and paratroopers directly on top of disrupted German armor units of the 9th SS, which enabled them to destroy almost all of their tanks without losing a single strength point. It was a rank exploit, but fully within the rules. After that, and then seeing the 82nd land almost within spitting distance all around Nijmegen, also with few casualties, there was just no point anymore. I don't like to toss around that oft-abused board game geek term broken, but in this case it surely applies. I hear that the Derision Games version of Highway fixes some but not all of these issues, but then, in typical Derision fashion, it introduces problems of its own with some new rules systems. It's all academic since I just will not buy, own, or play anything with the purloined Derision logo on it. It's a principle thing, and it's just a hard and fast rule with me. So there you have it, my back burner of games that I hope to get to the table or the monitor at some point. If any of these games are overcooking on your back burner, reach out and maybe we can find a few gaps in our schedules that'll allow us to get these suckers played. This has been your friend Alan Dickerson, also known as Stiglr, at Stiglr for the details. We'll see you next time.